Thoughtcast Network. Out of the shadows come the best of any podcast. Hey, y'all, I'm Jamie, and you are listening to Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBTQ+.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to our new podcast, Diagnosing a Killer. I'm Coelle.
And I'm Kenna.
In this podcast, myself, along with my sister Kenna, deep dive into true crime stories with a focus on psychology.
Our goal in creating this podcast is to break the stigma surrounding mental illness and violent crimes, educate people on what it means to be mentally ill, and bring awareness to horrific events that sometimes happen in the absence of treatment.
On Thursdays, we bring you a true crime case where we detail the subject's childhood, confirmed or suspected mental illness, and their crimes. These riveting yet infamous stories will absolutely keep you on the edge of your seat.
Join Coelle and I on Mondays as well when we bring you an episode that is all about psychology. Whether it's a diagnosis, event, experiment, or just something we think is cool, these episodes are sure to be educational and entertaining.
We are extremely excited to discuss these topics with y'all, and we cannot wait to hear your feedback. Love you. Bye.
Hey, if this is your first time listening, I occasionally use swear words, and if you have a problem with that, I'm not the host for you. Hey there, Rainbow Warriors, and welcome to Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBTQ+. I'm your host, CJ. Woo woo. I also speak dog, and for those who haven't seen my social media posts, I have a new puppy. I got him on my way home from the Denver True Crime Paranormal Festival. I found him in Boise, Idaho. He's half Maltese and half Papillon. I named him Jack. I have to believe that my Nilla sent him to me, even though she knew I wanted a little girl Maltese like her. I think by sending the boy it was her compromise, and I'm okay with it. Plus, getting him neutered will be a lot less expensive than getting a small girl dog spayed, and less dangerous. I never had Nilla spayed because of the horror stories I had heard with spaying a little dog. I was thankful at the time she didn't have puppies, although now I would have loved to have had one of her pups. But either way, Jack is my new buddy, and he's 3 months old. He's pretty good at being potty trained. He goes on a potty pad. And he sleeps all night long, which I love, because a tired CJ isn't fun for anyone. The only couple of things I still need to work on is leash training him, and establish him a vet. With leash training, I've been doing it for the last 5 days, and he is getting it. He's pretty good on that leash. As for the vet, all the ones in the city I live in seem to not be taking new clients except for one, and that vet's the one that the kids use. They don't like it very much because it's very costly and they're kind of pushy with things. So what I might do is call up Nilla's old vet and see if they can get him in. They don't have very good reviews on Yelp, but they took great care of my Nilla when I had her. The only other drawback is that they're half an hour away, which is fine on the non-rainy months. But in the rain, the roads are curvy and slick and prone to many accidents. This vet, though, was good enough to mail me Nilla's medication when she needed it. I also love the fact that one of their vet techs is married to a trans man. So I just wanted to share that tidbit with you. Yay! I'm mom to another fur pup. The Denver True Crime Paranormal Festival was okay. I didn't honestly have as much fun as I did in Austin the year prior. One was the van trip to Denver with my kids and their dogs. It was not fun, and it was extremely stressful and hot-tempered. Also, when we got to Denver, I sincerely missed hanging with Jen of our True Crime podcast, Courtney of Nefarious Nightmares, and Erica Kelly and her hubby Mike of Southern Fried True Crime. But seeing some pod friends was kind of the high point for me, and meeting some new ones also, and potentially some new listeners. All that is aside from getting my puppy Jack, of course. I also spent far too much money and paid for just about everything on this trip. The rental van, gas with the exception of 2 Phillips that my daughter's boyfriend paid for on the way home. To fill that damn huge-ass van up was between $75 and $85 each time we had to stop for gas. I believe we stopped about 6 or 7 times each way. We covered 5 states in 7 days, twice. So essentially, that was 10 states in 7 days. I paid for the rooms at hotels that we had to stop at, and pet security deposits for their dogs. And I paid for the Airbnb. For what I spent, I could have paid my house payment for almost 4 months. And now I'm a broke bitch. Oh well, it's only money, I guess. Unless I can figure out another way to pay for the true crime festivals, I'm probably done for a while. The True Crime Festival 2025 will be in Boston, and that sounds like a good time if I were able to fly out there solo, but I'll have to see. I hope all of you are good, and I hope you were good while I was gone. I had planned to take another week off, but I had this episode in the oven ready to go, so here I am. One last thing before we jump in. Last episode, I mentioned a missing woman from Chicago, Illinois. Her name? Taylor Casey, and she disappeared from a yoga retreat in the Bahamas. I might have erred when I said she was a lesbian. I mean, that still could be true, but she apparently is a trans woman as well. Her mother was a little hesitant in disclosing her gender information because she was in fear that it would distract from searching for Taylor. So I just needed to clear that up with you. Now, I'd like to ask you warriors if you knew that there are 3 degrees of murder. I have to be truthful. I was surprised when I learned of 3rd-degree murder. Honestly, I thought it went from 1st to 2nd to manslaughter. I'm wrong again, apparently. And that's okay. I'm woman enough to admit it. We know 1st-degree murder is pretty much premeditated murder. 2nd degree is not premeditated, but it's intentional, and it's reserved for more spontaneous crimes, like crimes of passion. 3rd degree is described as non-meditated, and it's considered a non-violent felony. And to me, that's just kind of fucking weird, because unless it's, say, poisoning, and that would include supplying drugs for an overdose, how do you murder someone non-violently? And even with poisoning or drug overdoses, the body reacts violently, so I'd include those as violent too. There are currently only 2 states who use 3rd-degree murder as a charge, and that's Pennsylvania and Minnesota. This will be important to our main case that occurs in Pennsylvania. Point Breeze is a neighborhood in Philadelphia with a population of over 17,000 residents. It's snuggled in Philadelphia County, and it's said to be one of the best neighborhoods to live in there. The neighborhood supposedly gives off an urban-suburban feel, and it's home to many young liberal professionals. There's a lot of bars, coffee shops, restaurants, and parks in this neighborhood as well. Sounds like fun. But on October 2nd, 2023, it was anything but fun for a gay journalist and activist named Josh Kruger. In fact, his own home turned out to be a deadly hell instead of a sanctuary for him. One more thing that I would like to preface before I get into the meat of this case is that our victim, and mind you, I would never ever victim shame, had been in a relationship with his killer since his killer was 15 or 16 years old. I do not condone adults in relationships with teenagers under the age of 18. And that's just my stance on it. Because yes, while I'm a victim's advocate, I'm an advocate for children as well. And I feel when adults take on a romantic and sexual relationship with a child, the child is a victim until they're of an adult consenting age. This means I would consider the killer to be a victim of the victim for 2 or 3 years while the killer was still a child. And that's just my judgy self's opinion on this case. It does not mean by any degree that the victim of this murder deserved death. Okay, let's go ahead and get on with the case. 39-year-old Josh Kruger was well loved by many. He was known as an LGBTQ+ advocate and an advocate for the homeless. Josh was even the spokesperson for 5 years for the city's Office of Homeless Services. This was from 2016 to 2021. And then he left his position to go back to being a journalist. Josh had received many awards for various articles that he published in Philadelphia newspapers and magazines. He was also an advocate to help support those with addictions. During one time of Josh's life, he had been homeless. He also had a pretty nasty meth and intravenous drug addiction, but he was able to combat both. I believe this is why he had become such a loyal supporter of both homelessness and in helping those with addictions. Josh simply wanted to give back to the communities that he'd been living a part of in his life. Josh was also living with HIV, and he helped those organizations as well. Even a senator from Philadelphia said that Josh cared deeply about Philly, and he fiercely advocated for the most vulnerable communities through his journalism. He will be sorely missed. So it looks like aside from being in a relationship with a teenager while he was an adult, Josh seemed like a really good guy. Was his relationship one of those that the heart wants what the heart wants situation? Or was Josh being a pedophile? I don't really have the answers, and as far as I know, there were no other children or teenagers he was attracted to other than this guy. I will go ahead and let you use your own moral compass to decide how you feel about it. Just before 1:30 a.m. on October 2nd, 2023, Josh was heard by his neighbors at his townhouse telling someone, "Get out of here! I'm tired of you being mean to me." Josh stood at the base of his stairs just inside the door when 7 shots were loaded into his chest and abdomen by his ex-boyfriend, 20-year-old Robert Davis. Badly wounded, Josh stumbled outside to try and get help from his neighbors by yelling for help, and while Josh did this, Robert fled the scene. Neighbors had called the police upon hearing the gunshots and Josh yelling. When police arrived, they found Josh on the sidewalk near his home. Miraculously, Josh was still alive. He was transported to a hospital where he later died. The police investigators had uncovered some meth in Josh's home, which meant that they naturally suspected that his murder could have been attributed to a drug deal gone bad. However, a closer look at Josh's phone showed some heated text conversations with his ex-boyfriend and he. In April of 2023, 6 months before he lost his life, Josh had tweeted, yes, I said tweeted because that platform will always be Twitter to me. In April, Josh tweeted, "This morning I fed Mason breakfast and then fell back to sleep briefly, only to be startled awake with a man I used to be friendly with in my bedroom. He did not have permission to be there. The door was locked, so he had somehow obtained a copy of my keys." Mason is Josh's senior kitty who only had 1 tooth. And the man who came to his room unexpectedly is believed to be his ex, Robert Davis. After analyzing more texts and messages on Josh's phone, police wasted no time in arresting Robert Davis, although it was not before Robert was out committing another crime at the SEPTA, which stands for Southeast Philadelphia Transit Authority. SEPTA. This is the city's bus, light rail, and trolley services. It would appear Robert had pulled a gun on someone else, but didn't injure him. The interaction was caught on CCTV footage, however. So when Robert was arrested for the murder of Josh, he was also charged with illegally possessing a gun with intent to intimidate and harm. Unlike some of our more recent cases, Robert has already gone through the trial process, and he was convicted of third-degree murder. See, there's that third-degree murder in Pennsylvania thing. And to be real here, how do we know that Robert didn't fucking premeditate Josh's murder? We don't. No one else does either. So how he got away with third-degree murder, which is essentially manslaughter? And if you recall at the start I said it was supposed to be a non-violent crime, I have no clue. The crime was truly violent, with 7 bullets pumped into Josh. This was not negligent homicide, but it was intentional. In my opinion, he should have been charged for second-degree murder. Tell me what you guys think. Was third degree an acceptable charge, or should it have been stronger? Robert was sentenced to 15 to 30 years, with another year or 2 for illegal possession of the gun at the light rail station. The sentence is thankfully a little tougher than I thought it would be for third-degree murder. However, Robert's sentence could be reduced, or he could obtain parole much sooner. Rest in power, Josh. Our True Crime Quickie this episode is also a newer case, and it too is from the state of Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, it has no resolution yet, but it should once the trial gets going. And thankfully, there's a ton of evidence for a conviction. An adorable 14-year-old trans girl named Pauly Liken had taken a walk the night of June 22nd, 2024. She had walked to a friend's house. In the early hours of June 23rd, she posted on Snapchat that she had gone out on a late-night walk. A friend of hers asked if she was okay, and she responded. Her friend then asked her another question or two, but Pauly was no longer responding. Video surveillance footage in her hometown of Sharon, Pennsylvania, showed what appeared to be Pauly at a canoe launch along the Shenango River, which is in Sharon. The video surveillances come from a couple of local businesses and neighborhood homes. The videos also show a vehicle arriving and then leaving around the same time that the video shows the little figure that looked like Pauly. This all happened at 3 a.m. in the morning at the same canoe launch. When Pauly didn't show back up home and none of her friends knew where she was, her family reported her missing on June 25th. Pauly had now become a missing person. Pauly aspired to become a park ranger like her Aunt Liz. She's been described as a selfless, sweet, caring, and a loving child. She adored nature and the outdoors. She loved getting her nails done and going shopping. She helped others when she could, even donating some change she had saved up to a veterans stand she saw outside her local Walmart. But for as sweet as Pauly was, she also had a sassy side, and she loved teasing her family members. She enjoyed spending time with her family, and she was notorious for cracking jokes. Pauly's relatives and friends started extensive searches for their beloved Pauly for several days. Then suddenly, police began to find dismembered human remains in garbage bags. This was in and near the Shenango River. By July 3rd, 2024, the Mercer County coroner determined that the remains were that of Pauly Liken's. Her cause of death before dismemberment was said to be from sharp force trauma to her head that would have been from a sharp-edged or pointed instrument such as a knife or a machete or even a sword. Investigators started to look into the vehicle that was seen arriving and leaving the Shenango River area, the same place where Pauly had been the early morning hours of June 23rd. And for all of their efforts, it led them to a 29-year-old man named Deshaun Watkins, or as I prefer to call him, Douche Sean Watkins. And more surveillance videos turned up showing Douche Sean. In one, he was seen leaving a nearby apartment complex with a large duffel bag. When he left, the duffel bag didn't appear to have anything in it. But when he returned to the complex 20 to 25 minutes later, that same duffel bag now looked heavy, and it appeared awkward. Another video shows Douche struggling to carry the duffel bag, and he places it on the floor of the apartment complex's hallway. He picks it up again, takes a few more steps, and then he puts it on the floor one more time before he opens the door to an apartment and enters. Douche isn't seen again until later that day when he leaves the apartment with nothing. He returns a little while later with a shopping bag. Then he leaves again the following day with multiple bags and garbage bags. This guy becomes the detective's prime suspect in killing Pauly Liken. He's picked up by the police and arrested for first-degree murder. Detectives go to Douche's apartment, and right off the bat, they see bloodstains where he rested the duffel bag on the floor in the hallway, both the first time and the second time. Once they're inside his apartment, more blood is found, and a saw, as well as a receipt for the saw that he recently purchased. Now, unfortunately, this did not seem to be a chance meeting between Douche and Pauly. Douche's phone records, because Pauly's phone is yet to be located, show that the two had interaction on Grindr. Fucking Grindr again. I swear they need to screen their users better or something. There's just been too many Grindr murders. Douche told the police he was supposed to meet up with someone he talked to on Grindr, and he said that he had sex with someone that matched Pauly's description. But he said he didn't take the person home with him. He told police he couldn't remember where they met or where they went, but he remembers having sex. Whatever, liar, it's all on video, at least enough to implicate your ass. As I said, Douche is being charged for first-degree murder, but since he's a gay man, no hate crime enhancements are being sought. Something I've struggled with since starting this podcast is why LGBTQ people kill other LGBTQ members. Although I don't like it, I can understand passion crimes, I guess, when one partner might take another partner's life depending on the circumstance. But a random murder? What the fuck? As a community of like-minded people, we should be looking out after each other, not killing one another. And again, we have a case of a grown-ass man meeting up with a child for a sexual connection. Grindr, really? I used to feel a little sorry for this dating app and the heat it was taking for all the Grindr murders, robberies, and attempted murders. But if you can't screen your users and verify true ages, then you are just asking for trouble. Pauly's dad, Paul Sr., has spoken out to media about his child's death. Paul Sr. has some trouble referring to Pauly as she and her, and addresses his late child as his son and him. Although he doesn't call Pauly by her correct pronouns and preferred gender, Paul Sr. seems to have really loved Pauly. Their last conversation went a little something like this. Paul Sr. said, "I love you and I'll give you a call when I get home Monday after work." I'm not sure if Pauly's mom was in the picture or if another relative stayed with Pauly while Dad was off working. I guess what I'm getting at is I don't know the situation that would have a 14-year-old child out walking the streets alone in the wee hours of the morning. Again, another judgment from me. At last check, Douche has yet to enter a plea. I certainly hope that they'll tack on some pedophile charges to the first-degree murder and desecration of a corpse charges. Douche Sean's preliminary hearing is set for July 25th, so coming up this Thursday. I think it's going to be a while before we see much happening in his sentencing, which brings me to the mom in me. Oh, wait a second, that sounded dirty, but you know what I mean. If you're a rainbow warrior that uses Grindr, please be careful. I don't trust that app at all. I have to figure out how I can make some noise at the Grindr creators to have them step it up. Screen their users more carefully. Children should not be using this app or any other type dating or hookup app. I don't recall what the qualifications to join Grindr is. A long time ago, I got on Grindr to research a case that I covered, but I don't recall how the signing up process worked. I know from my own personal experiences on dating sites that I've been on, some of them require a photo in real time showing an access code that you write and hold up, and that way they know you're real. And I don't think that sending a copy of your driver's license to verify your age is an unreasonable request, especially if it might deter someone from harming someone else. I don't have all the answers, but it seems to me that Grindr needs to step it up and make their platform much safer for adult people to use and to remove children as users altogether. In fact, I think maybe a lawsuit or two from Pauly's family against Grindr might be a good idea. Maybe that would wake them up and put some more security and protection in place for those who are on the app. These days, money seems to be the only thing that can change situations like this. Hit 'em where it hurts. Rest in power, Pauly. I love you, Rainbow Warriors. You matter. And remember, it's not a crime to live your truth, unless you're a murderer.